Welcome to the upstreamlife.com. I'm your founder and editor, Vishal Krishna. Today, I'm talking with Suranjana Ghosh, the head of the Marico Innovation Foundation. She's going to tell us about Inspire, Involve, and Impact, the three pillars that have led Marico Innovation Foundation to support ideas that can scale for positive outcomes. Hi, Suranjana. Welcome to the upstreamlife.com. How are you doing?
Hi, Vishal. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here and to have the opportunity to talk to you about the Marico Innovation Foundation.
So I'm pretty much close to your foundation. I've been tracking it for a while. I'm curious to know more every year. You've taken over for, a good part of 6, 7 months now, right? Like you told me.
That's right.
And so I wanted to know your journey first. Why get into a nonprofit? And then we could talk about the Marico Innovation Foundation, the work that it's been doing. We could talk pre-COVID and post-COVID if you could divide that into two segments, right? Go for it, Suranjana.
Sounds good, Vishal, and thanks once again. Like you mentioned, I've actually joined the foundation in March this year. So it's been, my first 6 or 7 months right now, and it's a really exciting ride so far. And prior to, working at the foundation, I've got about 20 years of experience across both the for-profit and non-profit categories. I started my career in brand and product management at L'Oreal and Kellogg, and then moved on to media and digital marketing at CNBC TV 18 and BBC World News. And a personal experience somewhere in between those journeys actually led me to campaign in an individual capacity for better rights for people with disability at Indian airports, especially at airport security. I'm a cancer survivor and an above knee amputee myself, so somebody who has an acquired disability for the last 20 odd years. And this put me in a situation where I realized that I would need to talk about it in whatever manner I could in an individual capacity. It was my first experience of campaigning and working collaboratively without having had any experience of doing this. And very naturally, I think, about 6 years back, I kind of gravitated towards the social impact sector where I worked with Dasra and then with Power for All most recently. And I've worked on these large multi-stakeholder platforms, building behavior change campaigns or advocacy and access campaigns for renewable energy, for urban sanitation, urban climate resilience, gender. And I think if you look at my personal journey, there is a linkage between, purpose, profitability, product, and that's kind of what has led me to this role at the Marico Innovation Foundation. It's a perfect amalgamation of both, being able to work with brands that are actually looking to create a positive social, environmental, and economic impact, while also being sustainable businesses. So I really feel that this is, a job that's so perfect for someone like me with this kind of personal journey, as well as the foundation's outlook as well towards how it would like to impact startups in India.
It's interesting. I want to take a little more of your backstory with the Marico. When you talked to Mr. Mariwala and you came in, you've been campaigning on an individual capacity. When a lot of people look at nonprofits, they don't realize the impact the Marico Foundation has actually really made, right, over the years. There must be something that interested you in the foundation that, you said the word purpose is very important. Based on that purpose, you would have chosen Marico Innovation Foundation for a particular reason, right? You want to talk about that when you met Mr. Mariwala and what you liked about him and why the synergy?
Absolutely. I think it makes for an interesting story. So when I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Mariwala for this particular role, I didn't really know too much about the foundation, and that in itself, I think, fascinated me. I said, how can a foundation have been around for 20 years and have done such impactful work, and very few people are actually talking about it? And then when I met Mr. Mariwal, I realized it's such a reflection of the way he looks at impact. It's really about, being able to help without, wanting to look at accreditation maybe, and being able to really create long-term impact. And looking at what he can do to actually bolster the entire environment, the entire, let's say, environment for startups, for innovation, for entrepreneurship, without actually wanting to take too much active credit for it. And I think it's his humility and his love for philanthropy, I think, which really, drew me into this role.
That's fascinating. And thank you for that insight. I really want to now go into the pre-COVID work of the foundation and the post-COVID. And things have changed. I mean, lot has changed. I mean, in a sense, everybody talks about these startups using technology and all that. But a lot of people have to really be grounded in sustainability and impact also. What was the effort? Does the foundation's platform remain the same? I mean, the last time I met them was in 19. So would it be the same as 19, or have things changed, or has the approach changed in working with people who want to make impact?
Michelle, that's an interesting question, and thank you for that. I think things are changing because obviously, models of work pre-COVID and post-COVID have changed. And as a foundation that is working with, tip of the spear, cutting edge, category creating sort of technologies, we really could not have stayed on in the 2019 mold. Having said that, I think, where we're at today in 2023 and then going forward, for the next couple of years, we're obviously building and leveraging on, the entire sort of equity and the expertise that we've built over the last 2 decades. What we're looking at right now is, I think, a refinement of the model. Many of our programs are, of course, the same, but we have the addition of a couple of things. And I think post-COVID, there's just a lot of energy and a lot of intent, that you see in terms of being able to create quick impact, deep-rooted impact, and looking at things differently. I mean, I think for all of us who've been able to tide over those 3 really tough years, we're all sort of doubly committed to being able to create as much change and as quickly and as deeply as we can. And the foundation reflects that philosophy as well.
So let's get into the core activities of the foundation now. I mean, what sets, one of the things is accelerators and incubators. I meet them all the time, but you're the only foundation that keeps measuring impact, that whatever you do for profit, is it giving back to community? Is it giving back to environment, right? And you measured those outcomes. So what are those core activities today and for the benefit of our audience? And why are you different from other incubators or accelerator programs there?
Right, Vishal. So I think let me actually begin at the beginning in that case, of the foundation. So it was started in 2003 by Mr. Harsh Mariwala. And it was started when CSR didn't exist as a concept at that point in time, in Indian legalities. And he started it as a philanthropic arm of Marico Limited. As you all know, Mr. Harsh Mariwala is the founder and chairman of Marico Limited as well. And if you look back 20 years ago, then, innovation was really not the buzzword that it is today. And it would often be used very interchangeably with, words like jugaad or invention. And so there was ample innovation happening in India, like it always has. But there was really no entity supporting it to achieve scale and create impact in that sense. So that's the genesis of the foundation. And being an entrepreneur himself, Mr. Mariwala has always strongly felt that innovators need a support system, to scale and benefit India in the world and the world, in the long run. So the foundation exists with the aim to nurture and propel Indian innovations. And so, it was founded as this philanthropic not-for-profit arm of the parent company, Marico Limited. And over the past 20 years, I think what we've done is we focused on recognizing disruptive Indian innovations, supporting innovative organizations to scale impact. And we're doing this through 3 flagship programs. The Innovation for India Awards, which was launched in 2006. And I can go into a little more detail about each of these.
Please go for it. I mean, I would love to hear everything about it, please.
Right. So the first is the Innovation for India Awards, launched in 2006. The Scale Up program launched 10 years later in 2016. And then we have sectoral programs, which are done every 2 years. So the Innovation for India Awards, we've just completed the 9th edition, and we're gearing up for the 10th edition, which will happen in 2025. What we do in this is we look at potentially game-changing Indian innovations across 2 categories, for-profit and not-for-profit. This is a biennial awards, and it was one of the first of its kind in India when it began. It's also the first Indian platform to recognize and celebrate, the pioneering work of sort of currently hidden, not really in the public eye as yet, sort of innovations. There's a unique and robust evaluation process that we incorporate in this, spanning 8 months. So it's not something that's done very impulsively. It's a very well considered sort of evaluation process to handpick these disruptive and promising innovations. There are 2 rounds of deliberations. There are 2 different independent juries, both for the social as well as for the for-profit categories. And then a very thorough on-ground due diligence is done by an independent knowledge partner to make sure that the innovations that have come to the fore are really delivering on the promise. I think we've been able to identify 65 plus disruptive Indian innovations over the last 9 editions, which in itself is such an amazing number, because we get anything between 500 to 700 entries for the awards. And so from there to be able to cull out, 6 or 7 winning entries is really quite a Herculean task, because sometimes they're spoiled for choice. And some of these are, Dozy, Khushi Baby, Olympic Gold Quest, Dhruva Space. So you'll see that this is very sector agnostic in terms of the innovations that have been awarded.
Yeah, you've been reading my mind. I wanted to say what sectors interest you, but it is sector agnostic.
It's completely sector agnostic. This is actually the platform, Vishal, that allows us to be able to recognize and celebrate innovations that probably don't fall into our definition of innovation, or the sort of verticals that we're currently working with. So this really allows us that opportunity to be able to engage with the larger innovation ecosystem and bring it to India, and and highlight their successes to a wider audience.
Do you want to give a few examples? That way the audience has a perspective as to what kind of impact these entrepreneurs have made with you. You want to give some examples?
Yeah, I can talk about one of the winners from this year. So this is Dozy, and Dozy is a technology that is for patients and for patient care, and it can be remote controlled. It depends on a sensor which basically is below the mattress of the patient. So if you are unable to basically find a hospital bed or have constant hospital monitoring, Dozy actually allows you to do that. And the genesis, again, of this particular technology, I think, is fascinating, because the founders discovered that the motion sensor that they were working on actually worked on, a rug or a blanket on which their dog was sitting. And that actually sparked the idea that, can we use this then, for a hospital innovation? And which actually now means that you're able to deploy this kind of technology in many, many remote areas, or anywhere where you're unable to bring a patient into the hospital, because hospital beds are always scarce. So this is really fascinating. Another crucial aspect of what we do with the awards is to also give, the winners a platform to talk about these stories. Many times the origin story is actually what also helps them, build this level of awareness and fascination about why this product exists, why should it be taken up by more and more people, and how can that technology be deployed, by the audiences that it's meant for.
No, this is, and Dozy folks are very popular in Bangalore because of their technology, and Mudit and the team is fantastic. And I'm glad you brought that example out. It's very current, and I actually ask people to check out Dozy. Very wonderful startup, wonderful. So and now my next question was, what are the specific areas that Marico Innovation Foundation focuses on? But since you're sector agnostic,
no,
how do you look at?
Sorry, I'll correct you there. We're sector agnostic for the Innovation for India Awards, and I haven't told you about the other 2 programs in more detail.
Go for it.
So there's the Scale Up program, which was established in 2016, and this is actually where we sort of double down on sectors that we have kind of gravitated towards working with in the last few years. This is a beyond capital, no equity, rapid acceleration program, where we're looking at catalyzing innovations through bespoke, strategic and functional mentorship and other network support offerings. So this is really unique. I think, this also kind of ties back to the question that you had previously, which is, how is MIF different from other accelerators? And this is where there is not a one size fits all solution. So if you are a startup that the foundation would have onboarded, we'd actually look at, specific challenge areas that your startup is facing. We'd be able to actually identify the right kind of mentors from within our network, both from within Marico as well as, through other domain experts that we are networked with, to be able to come in and solve those business challenges for you. And the objective, that's why the program is to provide mentorship to these, to scale up these disruptive innovations from early stage. These are typically between 70 lakhs to about 1 CR annual revenue rates right now. And for us to be able to then handhold them through the journey to 100 CR or Soonicorns, what we term as Soonicorns at MIF. So we're looking at being able to do that for them over a period of 3 to 5 years. And what we're doing right now is, a very personalized mentorship and guidance format in a one-on-one, one-to-one sort of, non-cohort manner, solving critical business challenges for these organizations. Each challenge, Vishal, is taken up in a really deep-rooted manner. It takes us between 6 to 9 months actually to solve for these. Defining the problem, ideation and solutions, implementation and testing to see if these solutions are working, and then measuring the impact of the implemented solution on revenue and growth, which is again the bit that you had mentioned earlier, right? That we're constantly monitoring impact as well. And it's also unique because our selection criteria is very strong. Our diligence process is exactly like what any other VC firm would undertake. Only about 1 to 2% of overall startups that we assess are selected. Most of our innovations are, first of their kind. They solve challenges usually of a global socioeconomic or environmental nature. So we're very specific about these lenses, that we are always looking at startups that are solving for, some sort of big audacious challenge and are linked back to the SDGs in some way in terms of the impact that they're creating. Again, these are now kind of in three buckets that we focus on. One is in terms of plastics waste management, so innovative startups that are working in this particular area. The next is food and agri-tech startups. And then the third is clean tech. So we've kind of divided up the portfolio between these three verticals right now for the scale-up program. And some of our success stories in terms of Sunicons created by us are Atomberg and S4S technologies.
Yeah, Atomberg and S4S also very popular.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got, what, 15 ideas that have scaled up or more now?
Well, 2 have reached the Sunicon status, which is the 100 CR mark. But we've definitely got about 10 to 12 startups, I think, in that pipeline right now. Well headed on the way, hopefully, to becoming 100 CR soon.
And I liked the way you said you should get to 100 crores. I mean, I think it's the revenues that matter. It's not the valuation.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said that. So a real Sunicon is somebody that's generated a lot of revenues, perhaps even cash. And that's fantastic. And I'm sure a lot of startups from your portfolio will get that. I wanted to quickly pick your thoughts on India a little bit. There's a surge, there's capital today. Everything is a digital business. Everybody plans digital, physical. There is talent, right? And quickly on the point of, surging ahead in terms of saying impact, you must be meeting tons of founders out there. And to get to your program itself is very difficult because you have these sectors laid out like food, agri-tech, a couple of other segments. Do you also advise, I mean, this is just digressing a little bit away from the foundation, how do startups prepare for impact, Suranjana? I mean, capital is available, people are digitally connected, but how do they think about impact from a founder's perspective? Does it start on day one? Is it table stakes? Do a lot of people get that? Or is it something that has to be taught in schools, colleges before they become entrepreneurs? Or do they learn it in foundations or in your accelerator program?
What a fascinating question that is, and it covers so much, right? And I really feel that, given the sort of variety of, founders that are out there, it really depends on the founder's makeup and the objective with which, a founder actually begins their enterprise. So often you would see that the germ of an idea is really built on, seeing something that would have catalyzed them into saying, hey, I want to create impact in this. I mean, just the other day, I came across, another startup that is building diabetes detection solutions. And this was because, again, somebody in their family had passed away due to, late detection of really grave diabetes, condition. And I find that fascinating because that is something where a startup's idea is really wrapped up with impact, with creating a health, a health innovation or a health solution, which is, there is impact right to the heart of it, right? And then there is the other side where you are clearly looking at being able to disrupt a particular sector because you probably have a game-changing technology and it is purely profit-based. But again, how do you actually go about creating, 100% profit-based enterprise, but also looking at impact maybe along the way is something maybe that, a lot of founders discover along the journey, that if I'm able to actually generate livelihoods along the way, or maybe create stability in a particular aspect of the economy, then again, that's, I think, a win-win situation. Not only are you creating a profitable business, but you're also able to impact other aspects, in terms of socioeconomic factors in the country.
So in your interviews at the foundation, founders get this straight off the bat, or many of them are not? They're pretty much okay.
Vishal, because I think, like I said, our filtering process, or rather our selection process, is really about how are these startups or how are these enterprises actually looking at creating, social, economic or environmental impact. So a lot of our technologies are really on that. So if you look at, all of our innovative startups in the plastics waste management space, all of them are actually helping to mitigate the problem of plastics waste management. So whether it is in terms of recycling, whether it's in terms of collection and segregation, there's a very direct impact in terms of being able to solve part of the plastics menace in that sense again, right?
Yeah, so
And
you can reading my mind. I mean, there's a playbook that you created for that, and you're right. Not many people have that playbook, right? Especially when I look at the D2C explosion, direct to consumer business explosion, and the amount of I mean, orders that urban people are consuming a lot. You see the impact of plastic play out. There are all these plastic tapes, plastic containers, and
packaging is just, yeah, it's just blowing up, right?
yeah, it
Yes.
is. It is. And I remember at a time when I didn't see plastics till 1989 in Bangalore. Okay. That's a long way away. And after that, I see plastics in villages. I see it everywhere. And people don't even know how to dispose it or even manage them, right? Most of them hoard it at home. At least people who want to save the environment hoard it at home and you go and there's space at home dedicated to plastic. That's so strange.
I
So
think there's that meme going around about having one large plastic that houses all the other plastic bags, right? In Indian
absolutely.
households.
Absolutely. And by the way, they reuse the plastic, which is good, but they also reuse those containers and put them in microwaves. That's even more hilarious. That's not good for you at
That's
all.
scary. That's not
That is
hilarious. That's actually dangerous.
it is very dangerous. It is hilarious the way the lives that we live because the playbooks are absent. And so you've created that playbook. I mean, Marico Innovation
Yeah, the
Foundation has,
foundation
of
has,
course.
yes.
And please explain the impact of this and why the purpose of this playbook is significant.
Right, Vishal. I mean, after that funny segue into plastics. So, this is again a part of our work. Like I mentioned, we have three pillars, right? So, which is the Innovation for India Awards, the Scale Up program, and then we have sectoral interventions every 2 years. And so the plastics playbook is actually part of what we've done most recently. And this is a playbook that we've created along with the Indian Institute of Science and Praxis, which is a consulting firm. We worked on it all through 2021 and 2022, and then it was launched in January of this year. I think the team evaluated several sectors to see which sunrise sector needs, immediate support. We wanted to, identify and tackle a sector that is kind of at the cusp of breakthrough adoption and was the need of the hour more than anything else. And I think plastics really fitted that bill for us. We also wanted to be in a sector where, there are innovations that are propping up all the time so that we can actually catalyze their growth and build opportunities through collaboration to sort of galvanize that sector through our participation in it. And then again, if you look at, Marico as a brand, as a consumer brand, that not only produces but also puts out a lot of plastic into the environment, I think we also have a commitment to be part of that solution. So when we looked at the entire plastics sector, we noticed that there was a lot of literature out there about the problem, but there was very little being talked about, how to solve for it at scale and at impact. And that's kind of where we identified, a white space for us to occupy and to be able to provide information and resource in that sense for the sector to pick up and say, okay, if we want to be part of the solutioning aspect of things, what's our entry point? What's the role we might play over here? And that's really the intent of the playbook for plastics, right? And we had conversations with, our trusted advisors, VCs, brand owners across categories. And that's why we arrived at plastics waste management as a specific entry point for the Marico Innovation Foundation as well. Because plastics by itself is really wide. And again, the timing is just right because with every CXO and every CEO, who has sustainability on the radar, for their agenda, and with EPR rules coming in for, for brand owners, I think it's really important and a very timely sort of, window for us to get into. Plus, the government's also taking stock of how to improve the country's waste management infrastructure. And there are several schemes that are out there now. And we identified that all the reports that were talking about problems really didn't help us understand how to tackle the growing plastics waste. And hence, the playbook has solutions to these hard problems, such as sorting of waste at high speeds with AI, or recycling hard to recycle plastics, such as flexibles, multi-layer packaging, or MLPs. And that's how in January we launched the report, which is Innovations in Plastic, the Potential and Possibilities. And the report aims to catalyze government, corporates, citizens, entrepreneurs to take action for solving the plastics waste problem at scale. And we've identified 15 different innovative startups that work across the entire plastics waste management spectrum, from recycling to biosolutions for plastic, bio-alternate solutions for plastic. So it's fascinating. And for example, a couple of our innovators use seaweed as a packaging alternative. So it's actually something that you can even eat, for that matter, right? And saying that you can do away with plastic is really not a solution. And as the team jokes very often that then I wouldn't be wearing the spectacles I'm wearing. We wouldn't have buttons on our clothes if there were no plastic. So you realize that there is plastic is it's omnipresent, but I think it's in how we manage plastic waste is really where a lot of innovation for solutions lies, and we are really hoping to ride on that wave of opportunity.
No, I'm glad you said it. As a material, plastic is very beneficial. It's the way we use it. I think that was very key. And I think this report is also valuable for corporates. I mean, if anybody from the corporate world is watching it, I think it's more towards your sector as well, because you're the large
Absolutely.
businesses out there. You want to talk a little bit about how they can benefit by downloading the playbook?
Absolutely. I mean, the playbook is available for download, and we can always share the link with you. And like I said, it features these 15 disruptive innovations that obviously have use case scenarios for alternate packaging, etc. Or of course, how can you prevent plastic waste from entering the landfill, or in terms of recycling plastic, so that companies can actually use recycled plastic for their consumer needs or for their product needs. We've also got case studies on global corporate innovations in the packaging area to reduce the use of plastic. We've got international benchmarks also in the report from a policy standpoint that India can adopt. A lot of analysis on the funding scenario in terms of the circular economy space, which is again another area that we're very keen to explore with within the foundation, as well as hopefully with other corporate or FMCG partners. We're also keen on understanding how we might be able to help the uptake of recycled plastic by other FMCG partners as well. So I think the idea, Vishal, really is to be able to create and mobilize awareness and sort of movement and the uptake of better plastic waste management at the brand owner front as well through an initiative like this. So yes, definitely lots for other corporates and FMCG brands to pick up from the playbook, and we've had a lot of interest from the people we've spoken with as well so far.
Okay, so those startups that can't make it to the scale-up program, for example, where they can learn all this and much more, right? Can they get into the mentorship program, or is the playbook available? I mean, not any playbook, right? I mean, the Marico Innovation Foundation, if I can look at it, it has many playbooks now. Scale-up program versus mentorship, are they different? Those who can't make it to the scale-up program, will they get a mentorship? How does that work?
Well, the scale-up program is actually the holistic sort of program, right? So one can't happen without the other. The mentorship, the market access, the capacity building, all of that happens within scale-up. So once you've made it to the scale-up, group of companies or startups, is when all of this is made available. So unfortunately, we don't really have another option right now where if you're not part of scale-up, then the mentorship can be made available. Having said that, we do of course have a lot of people reaching out to us, and sometimes if these are areas of work where we might have networks, and we're happy to make those connections, but we wouldn't be able to work in this hands-on, very bespoke manner that we would do if you were part of the scale-up program.
Okay, compliance. When they come in, people have to learn compliance. A lot of startups have to understand compliance for sustainability. There is something of such, right? There's a lot of measurements today, especially for the CO2 side. I mean, there are a lot of measurements. Do they learn compliance from you also? Do they need compliance officers once they go through your program? Compliance for sustainability, for example, right? Or is that, I mean, a lot of people are getting sustainability officers. Sometimes I don't think you need to hire people if you understand how it works. But there's this thing that, you have all types of officers being created just when you're fundraising, you're doing all that. But how would you suggest them to look at this for compliance?
Right. I can actually answer that also in a slightly broader fashion, because when I spoke about the business challenges that we identify for startups that we onboard and scale up, Vishal, this is actually across a plethora of challenges that the startups might be facing, and that might actually be even in terms of HR, being able to find the right people, understanding how do you take a product to market, so the go-to-market strategy, and all of that obviously involves aspects of product management, which would be compliance, which would be procurement, logistics, distribution, all of that. And the way we're able to help them identify both these problems as well as mitigating those challenges is through our mentor pool. And our mentor pool would be drawn in maybe from, someone in Marico who's working in a key role in procurement or in compliance or in terms of sustainability. And I think we have this abundance of, sort of talent that we're able to pool into to be able to help the startup or the startup founder bridge that gap, and maybe also even kind of help build their understanding of how does one then look at a specific function like compliance, like distribution, like even a let's say a business to business model or a business to consumer model, right? So I'm not entirely sure if that's a direct answer to your question, but yes, I think the way we do it is to be able to identify the right mentor and being able to match them with the challenge or with the requirement that the startup has.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I mean, a lot of it is sourcing. In larger, I mean, if you look at the consumer startups, it is in sourcing procurement that they have to do compliance for, right? And what are your suggestions there? That they look at each process and look at compliance differently?
No, I think it's very woven into the entire larger picture again, right? And so this is exactly what the portfolio manager from the Marico Innovation Foundation will sit down, with the team at the startup and identify. So if there are maybe, let's say, 15 compelling needs, we would actually help the team identify where there is a relational aspect from one to the other. So if you can't move to, let's say, challenge number 3 without having mitigated challenge number 1 and 2, to even identify what's in priority and then actually double down on that, bring the right mentors, understand what might be needed over there to help them solve for those challenges, then moving on to number 3. Very often I think what seems to be the large glaring demand might actually be something that requires a few steps before that, and it's our job then as Marico Innovation Foundation to be able to help you identify what those challenges are and what sequence do we help you arrive at those solutions and then move on to the next. So I don't think compliance is something that needs to be looked at separately today. It's part and parcel of what you do, and it shouldn't be retrofitted for sure.
No, thank you for saying it shouldn't be retrofitted, guys. That's an important statement. Okay, quickly moving on to startup landscape. We know that we talked about many of them want to make impact. How do you look at the landscape today? I mean, if you come to Bangalore, it's all about technology, and then there's layers like fintech, consumer tech, all types of tech that we talk about. And sometimes I hear that it should be for people, it should be for impact on society. But the narrative is always about technology. Maybe because I hail from Bangalore, it's always about the talent here, right? So, what are your thoughts on the current landscape of the startup ecosystem and the impact they're making? And do you see them innovating a lot more for society? Is that happening when you meet founders? Is it ingrained in them? When I was in the Valley, a lot of the American people used to say that the Indian founders always have some form of societal impact ingrained in them. Do you see that? Is that true? Is that statement generally true? Or what are your thoughts on this?
Maybe because of the part of the startup ecosystem that I inhabit, I do happen to see a lot more of that. I do feel that, I'm seeing more startup ventures that have a level of societal impact inbuilt in their approach, or even in the way the products are going out there. So I think again in terms of how do I view the landscape, right? It's the startup landscape, and this better than I do because you're actually in startup mecca in the country. It's witnessed such a remarkable transformation, right, over the last decade as well. If I were to look at it, I mean, from maybe about 2,200 startups that we have in our database, in 2013. I mean, we now know that India is the third largest ecosystem for startups.
I think all you have to do is look at the ROC registrations. They're
exactly,
and many of them haven't even registered. So it's
so you don't even know how many of them are there, but everybody literally is sitting on potentially a fantastic startup idea, right? And
I think it's somewhere around 90,000 plus. It is kind of exploded.
Plus.
Yes,
yeah, it is 90,000 plus with about, I think, a little over 100 that are unicorns, if I'm not mistaken, right now. So, I mean, that in itself, I think, is just so promising for the startup sector in the country. I mean, that being in India at this point in time is nothing short of special.
Yes.
Because you're seeing all of this amazing impact, whether that's in terms of economic impact or whether that's in terms of societal impact. Just the intent for people to break out on their own and do something entrepreneurial, I think, is something that definitely my parents' generation didn't have the luxury to be able to.
I'd agree. That I'd say our parents didn't have the choice at all.
Yeah, exactly. And so, which is why I feel that the word startup is now just such a common part of everybody's common lexicon in our country.
Yeah, it's getting into movies. People right. in Bollywood talk about it.
Exactly.
And, all the South Indian movies talk about starting up and all that now. Yes.
Right. And it's just part of the broader business environment as well of the country. They're focusing on generating impactful solutions. They're looking at working with government in terms of how they might be able to actually leverage policies that are out there. And so I really see startups as these vehicles, that are able to create faster impact in really sort of defined pockets of impact, if I may call that, in terms of socioeconomic development and transformation. And you see startups occupying very defined spaces for impact. There might be somebody who's only looking at a particular aspect of the specific value chain, whether it's in terms of logistics or whether it's in terms of distribution, or or even look at yourself. I mean, there's so many amazing media startups today which didn't exist, even a decade back. And I think
I agree. I mean, imagine me. I mean, decade ago, I would have never. I was in a print organization. For all you know, I wouldn't have started up. You're right. Absolutely.
And you wouldn't know where to start from. But I think that whole demystification of startups is also part of the remarkable transformation that we're seeing in this landscape, right? And we're seeing that Indian startups are creating so much value, whether it's for the investors, whether it's for the larger Indian economy, and from e-commerce, fintech, healthcare, sports, you name it. There's a startup in every single sector. And they're disrupting traditional industries, they're disrupting the way work has so far happened. People have, choices of different ways of working because of that too. And it's really transforming the way I think businesses operate in the country. You no longer have to be, I think, wedded to a particular idea, for a decade. You can quickly test, build, repeat, fail, come back into something else, because I think entrepreneurs are people who are amazing idea generators, right? And they're always sitting on, even if they have one thing which is in the oven, there are, probably a few more that they're waiting to have someone to, be able to fund and get that on the ground. So I really feel that there's a lot of leveraging of technology as well, like you mentioned in your question, that to build these smart, really quick, rapid action solutions, to accelerate social impact. And an example of this, Vishal, if I may, is what we did during COVID, in the first year of COVID. So we did the Innovate to Beat COVID challenge, and which is something that MIF turned around really quickly. And we were able to, that's why, fund these innovative startups that were actually looking at solutions, Indian-made solutions, cost-effective solutions for PPE, for ventilators, for masks. And these are at par with, global standards. And if we had not done this in a really timely fashion back then, and of course, being supported by a startup ecosystem that is constantly looking to be able to create impact, both at speed and at scale, this is a perfect example of how the startup ecosystem is very quick to react and respond to a need of the hour.
I think your COVID, you did that ventilator program. That was pretty successful, wasn't it? I mean, I think you rapidly had ideas where a lot of people applied for that ventilator kind of a setup, and some of them launched them as well, right?
That's true. They did launch them as well. Yes. And which is why I said, I mean, they're at par with the international, ventilators, and so there is an export market, for one of the innovations that won the award.
That's exactly what I'm going to be. I have to talk with impact of tech also, but most importantly, as startup founders, there are two things that I look at. There's innovation, there is hustle, and then hustle gets confused with jugaad, right? And people used to write about this jugaad. I used to get a little angry. In between 2005 and 10, two words that were very popular in India were jugaad and frugal engineering. The latter I was very happy with. Yeah, we are frugal engineers in many ways, but the word jugaad really didn't sit very kindly with me. And I'm a startup founder now. It's very easy to do jugaad, to get work, to get into an opportunity quickly, but it's not sustainable at all. I mean, I have experienced that myself. It doesn't create a positive outcome for long term. It just destroys your business model. It destroys your value as an individual. So how do you tell founders, if they're listening to this, you have, whether you're in a technology business, in a services business, even trading, modern form of trading with where you blend technology and physical stores, what does innovation mean, and why jugaad is really not the cuss word of innovation? I mean, it's a cuss word for me. I mean, it's not. It doesn't go well with innovation. Your thoughts on this, please?
That's a really interesting question again, Vishal. Thanks for that. So I think jugaad has got itself a bad rap lately, and maybe for the right reasons, because much as you mentioned, right, it's something that kind of connotes short term, kind of connotes, okay, I had a few things lying around. What's a quick makeshift solution that I can come up with what's ready at hand? So it just seems to denote something that's not very well thought through, definitely not sustainable. and something which is just done, on the fly, maybe without too much strategy and arms and legs to that. And so it's kind of interchangeably used in the past with innovation. And I don't really think it's doing service to the word innovation if you interchange it with jugaad. It's a quick response. Jugaad is a quick response to an immediate problem.
I like what you said. It's a quick response. Maybe founders want an opportunity. There's a quick fix. Let's do this. And you're right. Absolutely. Go on.
And with your available resources, you're not going out for like another round of funding. You don't have to really scramble around to figure out how to do something at scale. But it's opportunistic, it's immediate, and it's handy. And the solutions that's why I think temporary and short-lived. It's a personal opinion over here. But true innovation, on the other hand, I think is long-term, highly scalable, cost-effective. It's defensible, right? I mean, it will stand the ground of many different permutations and combinations, any round of questioning. It provides sustainable benefits in the long run. It's also something that requires a heavy duty round of back end work. It requires research. It requires development, prototyping. Like I mentioned, you do the whole build, test, repeat model in that case, and testing to arrive even at the first workable version of an innovation. Understanding that if this has to go to market, how do I take it to market? How does this technology get deployed? Who's going to use it?
This is first principles. This is real first principles.
Right.
Not do something and then later say, oh, I got it wrong. You're right. Build, test, repeat. So important, right?
Exactly. So that's the
why do we get misled with this though? We always do something and then figure out that we've got an old team together now. And then we figure out that we messed it up. You know what I'm saying? So how do you fix this? You say, start small, understand the problem at hand with your research, build a small thing around it, and then scale it up?
Yeah, I think so. And I feel it's okay to fail and it's okay to make the mistakes, because obviously your learnings from those mistakes will also actually help you fine tune your model. And it's, of course, great to have, like a really hungry appetite and an audacious vision. There's nothing wrong with that. But I really feel that going in for a jugaad approach, as compared to something which is thought through and is the innovation side of things, which is more thought through and which is kind of looking at every single aspect of that entire journey, from innovation to production to actually being out there in the market and being sustainably out there in the market, I think is a longer game and needs more consideration. So even if you might have assembled this alpha team, and you are running and you want to be able to hit a critical mass as quickly as you can, I feel there is merit in the sort of well-considered, slightly longer duration innovation approach, just so that that whatever you're going after is a winning, testable, repeatable model, and which is going to pay you more benefits in the long term rather than a quick benefit, which could be the jugaad approach.
It's funny, when we did our class projects in school, right? There was no jugaad because there was somebody monitoring it, and if you went to a school, I mean, and the teachers would rap you. If you went to a good school, people would rap you and say, "Look, this is not done," right? And they'd tell you in a few words, and you'd go back and rework it. And I so wish the startup ecosystem really went back to the roots of school and realized that it's like a project. You got to figure out stuff, but obviously the complexity of the problem is larger. But you're right, India is so young. I think we'll figure it out. Do you think we should leave it to figuring it out, or would you say that get these right before you go raise money?
I think there's beauty in both of those, right? I mean, there are a lot of people who see merit in kind of learning as they go, and then there are people who would rather be super prepared and kind of have this whole thing in place. And there are, I think, there are arguments for both. I do feel, of course, that the more prepared you are, the easier it is for you to be able to convince somebody of your feasibility and be able to get funded. Just as an example, I was at a hackathon yesterday for climate-based innovations, and I really noticed that all the jurors, I mean, the attention that got, for any innovation that got the attention of the jurors in the room was really where you had a solid problem statement, where you'd actually thought through, what your distribution model was going to be. Was it really a seamless segue from your existing startup idea, or was it something that was kind of force-fitted? And so you could see where the preparation had been put in was immediately where people understood, the impact that this was going to create and how this might actually go to market, and hence the feasibility of funding over there. And another point too, it's just sparked a thought in my head, while you were talking, is also about the coachability of, founders. So how do you, and especially because you mentioned this thing about, being in school and we used to be told, okay, no, that's really going off track, and then you would be brought back on track, right? So given that we work on a mentorship model, which is very unique, and given that there's no cap on the table, I think it's very important for us also to be able to find coachable, founders. And you can bring in the best mentors, but if you don't have a founder who's actually willing to listen and learn, we can only do so much to help you on that journey. And I think we've been very lucky to have founders who see merit and and see the benefits of being coached, and that immediately sort of galvanizes the entire sort of mentorship journey along with the startup that we've onboarded.
No, that's wonderful insights again, and I hope people have learned about the difference between innovation, Jugaad. First principles, she could have. I mean, I've had many interviews, and you said it brilliantly. Build, test, repeat. Right? That's fantastic, and that's what your first principles are, ladies and gentlemen. If you're listening to it, okay. Now I want to talk about the technologies that are impacting the world currently, and I think they're really impactful. There's a lot of talk out there that humanity is not prepared to handle these technologies, and you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about AI, more so generative AI. Writers call me and say, "Are we being replaced?" Right? There are PR people who call me and say, "Are we being replaced?" And there's engineers who call me and say, "How can we use generative AI to work better, maybe, or is it replacing us?" And we are living in very special times where technology can be used for the benefit of mankind, but human beings cannot be lazy and be depressed and say that, oh, this is going to replace me, and you can't be dejected. You got to use these things for your benefit. And I wanted your thoughts. AI first, generative AI next. And do a lot of startups that come to you talk about these problems?
Great. I actually have a bit of the answer in your question itself, right? I mean, there is no point being paranoid about, technology or incoming technology. And in fact, the answer really lies in how you might be able to adapt to that technology and actually leverage it in your ways of working today, instead of, going into a doom and gloom sort of scenario, saying, oh my God, maybe my job's not going to be there tomorrow because, some, AI is going to eat up my job, and it's probably going to be a bot talking to the shah, the next time we're talking, and not Suranjana. But jokes
apart, can be, both of us can be bots.
Both of us can be bots, right? And maybe we'll finally go off on our retirement careers. But
it is true, Suranjana. It's so true. Actually, if you go to Spotify, any channel, there is AI-based music today. There's
right, there
people
is,
who have. It's crazy, but I think both will coexist. I mean, I want to hear about Suranjana, the CEO. I'll go to a podcast for a human side of it. But if there's a bot thing, like you suggested, there are takers to that too, right?
Right, exactly. And so, I mean, it's the possibilities are mind-boggling, of course. And I think where we're at, I think I'd really like to look at it as an opportunity for startups to be able to leverage that. We're seeing a lot of that, including in our cohort of startups. I mean, for example, again, to quote our plastics, startups, we've got Ishitwa. They're also one of our award winners for the Innovation for India Awards this March. They built a proprietary data set using AI and machine learning. And this models the AI vision. And this kind of it actually recognizes the type of waste and sort it on the basis of a pre-programmed direction. So for example, they are able to identify waste on the basis of color, on the basis of the brand packaging. So it could be a blue parachute coconut oil bottle, which can actually be sorted out. And they are able to do this at scale. So at about 6 tons per hour, if I'm not mistaken. And this is again using AI in a mind-blowingly positive manner. So I think the answer also lies in seeing what are those sort of, large, scary problems that we've been finding difficult to solve at scale because it needs either human intervention or it needs, technology or resources that are difficult to come by. So AI can leapfrog that whole process, I feel. And again, healthcare, I think, is another sector where we're seeing a lot of
Dozy uses
Dozy,
AI,
for example,
sure.
right? So waste, agriculture, education, automotives. I really feel like there's a lot of potential there. But yes, that's pretty much long and short of my response on AI.
Yeah.
And I think we'll be able to do this because we're reducing dependency on tasks that were done by humans who, all said and done, have a finite, productivity or an ability to be able to deliver after a point, right? I mean, 8 hours is what you're able to deliver at an optimal or like a super optimal level. And then there's an assimilation capability as well, which machines can obviously, surpass us at. So I feel that the AI model can keep learning and keep getting better as and when there are more and more, data sets that are fed into the AI model. But having said that, I really do, feel and hope that there are going to be certain things that humans can't be replaced by, including for this interview with
like the conversation that we're having, right? I mean, seriously, who would complain about plastic? The bot will not.
Bot will be like, I don't care. I mean, the bot would probably say, I'm like, I don't care either way.
I don't care. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for it, why does it have to worry about plastic? It doesn't care. So yeah, correct. That's so true. On that note, guys, she's right. I mean, technology is for human beings to use for the better, and I'm sure a lot of these startups, if you're watching this, let us know how the foundation can help you understand generative AI or use of AI for plastic. That's interesting. What is the name of the startup again?
Ishitwa.
Ishitwa, nice name. Yeah, so check out Ishitwa. Perhaps we'll do a podcast with them on this too.
Fantastic. We're happy to connect you with them, and yeah, they're really amazing. So do have them, on board.
Yeah,
and
I'd
have
love
a conversation with them.
Are they in Bombay or Bangalore?
They're in Bombay.
Okay, great to know there's a startup beyond finance and everything in Bombay. That's amazing. So I would love to host them. Okay, total number of startups that have applied to your foundation, and how many have you collaborated with? And you've given, obviously, Dozy is a great name. We talked about a couple of other names. S4S you talked about. So how many startups typically apply, and how many get selected, of course? And if they get rejected, can they apply again? Do you give them feedback? Is there a mechanism where I want to be part of this foundation, but how do I get there?
Right. So I think since its inception of the Scale Up program in 2016, so that's 7 years now, we've supported 30 plus innovations, Vishal, to be able to achieve what we call exponential growth for them, of which 2 are Soonicorns, like I mentioned earlier, which is S4S Technologies and Attenberg. In any given month, I think the team scouts and evaluates between 100 to 150 different startups. Like I said, the selection criteria is just so rigid and so defined in terms of innovation, being a tight definition of innovation. So it has to be something which is hard to replicate in terms of technology today. So there's at least like a 2-year difference between its closest competitor and where the startup technology is at today. So which makes it really hard for us to come by innovations that fit that definition for us. So in a month, we'll probably be onboarding maybe just 1 startup after having done the due diligence for over 100 or so. To your question about if somebody fails that selection round, can they come back? 100%. They can come back if they've come back to us with the parameters that would have not allowed them to make it into the cohort. If they can actually work on those areas. We've actually been in conversations with certain startups for a couple of years till we finally managed to onboard them. So yeah, I think it's an ongoing process. We don't, it's never like the end of the road if someone's not been onboarded today. Hopefully we are able to work with them, somewhere down the way, and those conversations are kept alive.
So you do give them feedback on what is missing and perhaps improve that and come back. That's
100%.
interesting. Okay.
We do let them know what were the parameters that didn't actually allow us to, bring them into our definition of innovation, and hence why we weren't able to onboard them. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, lovely. Large companies. There are many large companies, especially the SMEs out there. We're now going from 50 to 100 crores. I mean, India, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I saw automotive companies go from 50 crore. Vendors, of course, go from 50 crores to 3,000 crores over the last 20 years. And many of them from the Pune belt and obviously the Chennai belt, the Chennai corridor, automotive corridor, and even Delhi, of course. All these companies need mentorship and guidance when it comes to sustainability, technology and sustainability in many ways. Can they engage with, is there a program for them? Is there a program for larger companies?
Not really, Vishal. Like I'd mentioned, our criteria for working with companies is within the sort of approximately 1 CR annually in terms of revenue to, annual recurring revenue of 100 CR, which is what we hope to, build on that journey with them. And there are reasons for why we specifically engage only with startups at this level, these early stage sort of, organizations. So most startups really fail, there's like a 90% failure rate sometimes, right? So I think innovation, again, which is first of its kind, has an even higher failure rate, has an even higher failure rate of adoption, of being able to, be taken to market successfully. And there are very few organizations that actually support startups at the sort of early infancy or toddler kind of early revenue stage, right? So our aim is that's why to provide support to these risky but very game-changing sort of innovations at an early stage. And in a way, de-risk their failure, right? So that they can raise monies and find the right talent, arrive at, typically that 100 CR sort of annual recurring revenue stage. And we feel that these are the startups that require more support at this point than the larger companies that you mentioned. So,
no, but you can draw from a pool of people as mentors, right?
We totally can, and that's what we do, Vishal. That's really what we do. We do pull in domain experts, from established, let's say, players like a Larsen & Toubro or Mahindra and Mahindra, depending on what the ask is. So, for example, if there's an ask for an agriculture mentor in the space of farm equipment, then we will reach out to somebody who's a domain expert, someone senior at Mahindra and Mahindra to help us.
Absolutely.
And all of this is pro bono, Vishal. Again, the beauty of the model at Marico Innovation Foundation is that this mentorship is pro bono. The work that we do with the startups, again, there's no equity that we ask for. There's, of course, no capital on the table as well, but it's entirely philanthropic in nature. So, yes.
No, lovely. I mean, I think we've covered pretty much everything, unless you want to say something more about what can we expect from Marico Innovation Foundation for the next 1 year. Is there a new cohort that you're launching? Should people apply? Or what can we expect from Suranjana and team for the next 1 year?
That's amazing. I think the team and I are very excited because there's so much action going on. And, again, it's kind of linked back to your question on pre and post-COVID. And I think post-COVID, I think everybody's just, going at 100 kmph, especially over here too. And we're really excited to see how we might be able to grow our work in the plastics waste management space, in clean tech, and in food and agri-tech. So if you are a startup that's doing something really innovative and game-changing, and you're looking at creating livelihoods, being able to create both, business impact as well as social impact, reach out to us. We'll be really happy to talk to you because we'd really like to be able to scale this kind of work, for India and the world.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put all these links in the description, all the startups that she mentioned as well. It will be in the description. So please join the Marico Innovation Foundation when you can, or write to us and we'll connect you. I can't let you go without asking 2-3 things. One more personal question, and also recommendation books or, authors, art that you could, or movies that you recommend. But I want to start with resilience. Earlier you said that you're a cancer survivor, and all of us go through different experiences in life, and most of us try to hide that within us or go to a shrink maybe, but we don't share it, and we think sharing that aspect of our lives weakens us. But you've gone out there and spoken about it, and you don't have any apologies. You want to campaign for the betterment of people around you, right? You want to talk about that resilience and why it's important for individuals, and I hope it helps them by listening to you. I'm obviously going to put in the link to the TEDx talk also, because that's something that she'll get into in detail in that one. But what is resilience to you, Suranjana? Please tell us, and why it's important for everyone.
Sure, I think resilience is, the thing that makes you get up in the morning, and even if you don't know how your day is going to end, but it gives you a reason and a purpose to get through the day. And to know that, no 2 days are alike, but to just wake up in this moment and to be able to draw breath itself is something to be grateful for, and is a testament to your resilience to being here and to being alive today and to making the most of today. And yes, I have an early experience of, being very ill with cancer when I was 18, and I went through treatment for 4 years, which finally ended with my volunteering for an amputation when I was 22. So that's been, upwards of 20 years now. And I really feel that if I had not had such a life-altering experience, I might have been a very one-dimensional person. What it has helped me to do is to be very adaptable to all kinds of situations, to be very open to, doors that I didn't know were doors that I could knock on or that I could open and get into. And by that, I mean that the end of, a particular journey that you may have visualized for yourself, and a setback actually closes that door on you, doesn't mean that that's the end of the road for you. I've lived my life so far very much with the philosophy of, adversity being an opening to opportunity. And I've always, that's why, been able to think creatively on what might I do if a particular road, looks like it's a dead end for me. I feel resilience is a very important aspect to build in, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an employee, whether you're, just an individual living through life. It just helps you to build, the emotional muscle to go through the eventual and inevitable ups and downs of life, but to also congratulate yourself for, just looking back sometimes and saying, oh my God, that particular incident or that particular, event in my life looked so scary. But you made it through it, through, whatever combination of your own, your own tools. And,
Yeah.
please do. That's why I think access any tool that you're comfortable with, a friend that you trust, therapy if you're, willing to try that out. But constantly working on yourself, I think, is also a very important aspect. And being able to, I think, bring all aspects of yourself to work, because that's really how you're able to, deliver at your 100% or at least be optimal. And for a long time, I wasn't really able to, align the personal along with the professional. And I think in the last decade or so, I have done that. And I would really, that's why I encourage everybody to align all aspects of yourself and live as fully and as resiliently, that's why, as you can.
No, that's wonderful. I like what you told me pre-show. You said that you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so live it today and be prepared for tomorrow. That's it.
Absolutely. I think we all have this. I mean, all the gurus say this, you have only this moment and this day, but it's really so true, and it's very hard to practice. But just this moment, I think with you, Vishal, this has been such an amazing interview,
It
and
has been. Thank
really
you.
grateful for this.
But I can't let you go yet. You haven't told me the books that you read or recommendations, because I do read up on things that people recommend me. Authors that have inspired you. It could be also movies. It can also be pieces of art. Please tell us what do you do beyond the foundation, beyond your advertising, media career. How would you unwind? And I know you campaign a lot. That's something that you do too. But books and art and stuff that you like, something that's lighthearted. It could be heavy books too.
Right. No, you kind of actually touched on exactly what I do when I'm not at work. So I do read quite a fair amount, and a very diverse reading list, I think. So, and in the last few years, it's all ended up being nonfiction. What I very recently finished reading is Ikigai, which is a very famous and popular book. And I reread it, actually. I read it about 4 or 5 years back, and it didn't resonate with me as deeply as it just did last week when I finished reading it. And it talks about 3 very clear things. It says, be surrounded by community. And if you keep doing what you love doing, you will be able to never age. So aging is really not something I'm concerned about, but I really do always want to understand how might I be productive and how might I be surrounded by community. And a lot of my work reflects both these aspects. So Ikigai is something that I would recommend if, your audience hasn't read it. It's a fantastic book to read at any stage of your life, to find purpose, because that is what finding your Ikigai means. And your purpose might change from decade to decade, and that's fine because you're evolving.
Yes.
I love art. So yes, I think a lot of contemporary Indian art is something that, I really like going on to all the galleries in Bombay, and I follow them. So there's Chemold, which is doing a fantastic 60-year retrospective right now. So if any of your audiences are in Bombay, they should definitely drop in to see that. Music, I listen to a lot of jazz. So I find jazz really, very calming, meditative, and yet doesn't put me to sleep. So
you like Coltrane?
Love
or
Coltrane.
do you like any recommendations in jazz?
Let's go with Coltrane since you already mentioned that.
It's interesting. Jazz
Nina
is
Simone, Ella Fitzgerald, all my favorites.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think they're the classics. They're fantastic. Do you play music?
I wish I could. I'm one of those Bengalis who isn't very musically inclined, apart from being a very avid listener. So yeah.
But music is the heart of Bengal, believe
Absolutely.
me.
And I think I end up watching movies because of soundtracks rather than the screenplay a lot of the time. So
have you listened to the soundtrack of the Darjeeling Limited?
I have, yes.
That's good, no?
Fantastic, yes, of course.
It's got a lot of music from Satyajit Ray.
It does, yes. And so, yes, Ray is a great favorite. So I think, I grew up watching a lot of Ray, and there was a Ray retrospective when I was maybe in class 12 or first year, I don't remember. But that literally was my introduction to Bengali cinema. And there's just so much rich nuance to, both culture as well as, human nature in Ray's films. So
I must revisit him, because when I was younger, I used to be a bit more delusional. The darkness of it all, right? But yes, I must revisit it.
It's probably easier to handle the darkness as you grow older.
Yeah, absolutely. That about sums up our conversation. As you go older, you should get wiser to handle all forms of darkness. That's the light.
Exactly. And to keep finding your own little pinpoints or pools of light. And, sometimes they can be people, sometimes they can be a good day at work. It can even be, a cup of tea that you brew for yourself. So, yeah.
And thank you for this wonderful interaction. I really enjoyed it. And you should come down to my studio next time. We should talk just art and
I'd love to do
books
that.
and music. So let's
Yeah,
do that.
we definitely
Okay.
do. That'll be something I'll really look forward to. And thank you once again, Vishal, for having me on the show. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you about Marico Innovation Foundation and my journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Suranjana Ghosh. So thank you so much again. I'll see you soon.
See you. Bye.